All right, Michelle pressing the video button and sneaking by so you can't see her. So, hello internet. Let's get this out of the way really fast. Let's get this out of the way. If you're distracted by my watch, that's a Pokeball, and you can spin it. Isn't that fun? Okay, anyway. Oh, sorry. All right, it is really cool. I love it. And Pikachu tells me the time inside. So, anyway, I guess we should start. If you haven't shut the video off by now because you're like, this guy's not serious, I'm not going to listen to him, welcome to Broken and Remade. And welcome to Broken and Remade if you are in this room. Today, we are going to, since Christmas is coming, cover the resurrection of Jesus. Well, that didn't make sense, did it? But we're actually going to cover some of the resurrection of Jesus. I know that's not Christmas themed because this is about the birth of Jesus, right? But what I want to get out of the message today is found in two different descriptions of the scene at the tomb where Jesus rose from the dead. First off, it's in John chapter 20. John chapter 20. Were you trying to guess where it was, Tim? Yeah. Were you in the Mark? Uh-huh. Okay, we'll go to Mark after this. So you were ahead of the game. So good job. All right, so for now, John chapter 20, and we are going to focus very heavily on Mary Magdalene. All right, so we are going to learn a little bit about her and some of her experience at the empty tomb and what happened. The reason I want to focus on this is because of who she was and how she was used. I think this is a great thing to concentrate on for a broken and remade message because out of a lot of the people Jesus dealt with, Mary was way up there on the list of some pretty messed up people who God used in an amazing way. I mean, she was about as broken as they come, and we're going to find out why in a moment. And her brokenness was major. She is not a usable person from the earthly perspective, from our fleshly viewpoint of a person who God could use. And we need to realize that we've got to get over this analyzing everybody and determining in our flesh who can and cannot be used by God. There's so many people who are confused out there thinking about who they are, what they have to become for God to even accept them or even recognize them as people. And that's such a lie. And the devil uses this tactic in a major, major way in all of our lives. He brings on depression, anxiety, frustration, by making us oftentimes focus on our problems, what's wrong with us, how we're not this, we're not that. That person's better, that person's better. My life's falling apart. There's no way I'm usable. I'm done. It's over. There's so much suicide in our world today. Even just today, I saw an article about a Detroit news anchor. I believe she was doing weather. I'm not sure which one. Beautiful girl. I saw pictures on the internet. Beautiful. She's on Channel 2 in Detroit, I think it was. And she had been on Channel 6 Lansing, and she was a pretty well-known person in Michigan, in those cities. And she ended her life yesterday. Amazing. And, again, from an earthly point of view, she seemed and looked happy. She looked pretty. She looked successful. So when I analyze her in my flesh, I think, well, this girl, she's got it all together. Everything's great. And she ends her life. All right? You take someone, again, I bring up one of my favorites, Robin Williams. Okay? Love Robin Williams. He is my favorite actor. Man, so happy when you see his characters, when you see him in interviews, when you see him with his daughter, and he loves video games, which I love about him, right? He named his daughter Zelda. Fantastic. Way to go, sir. And he played World of Warcraft, all these, so from the outside, he's playing games, he's having fun, he's laughing, he's making other people laugh, he's doing these movies that are just amazing, he has so much money, and he ends his life. So we have to be real careful with how we look at each other. Like, we really need to look at each other and be there for each other. Because we're in a world of a lot of people feeling alone and feeling not good enough. And they're just ending their lives. Or they're going into substance abuse, drugs, alcohol, finding ways to basically disconnect from this world. You understand that's what a lot of this sinfulness that people pursue really has to do with, is just disconnecting. You hear a lot of times, I'll hear people at work say, finally it's the weekend. I can just go get drunk and relax. Well, I've been there, and it's not always relaxing. Day after definitely isn't very relaxing. But in their minds, they're like, I can disconnect. I can get away from my life. I can not have to worry about reality. I can live in this fantasy for a while. That's the problem with a lot of drug addicts, is they need a new high because the high is starting to die down. So they've got harder and harder drugs because they're losing that high they need. And that high is many times intended to disconnect from their emotions, from their problems, from their worries, and they can just avoid it. And that's how my life was when I was going through depression. Like when I'd go to the concerts and I'd sit with my alcohol and I'd be drinking it, and I'd try to get drunk as fast as I could because I knew I had to drive home later. And so I'd drink as fast as I could, get drunk as fast as I could, let the loud music play so I didn't have to connect with anyone. I could be in my own thoughts and my own problems. And it was a disconnect. And why did I do it? Because I didn't feel worthy to be around anyone. I couldn't get things figured out. I was a mess. No one would want me around. I'm just going to go alone and shut myself away. That's how a lot of us deal with our problems. You ever have that desire just to lay in bed and bury yourself in a blanket and never get out? I've been there so many times. It's weird, but one of my refuges was the bathroom floor. Doesn't that sound terrible? But like I'd wake up in the morning, I'd turn the shower on, and the sound of the water, I would take my towels like off the towel rack and I'd lay on the floor and just cover myself, and I'd just bury myself in there and listen to the water and pray and just try to disconnect. You ever been there, that feeling? Maybe it's not the bathroom floor, but you get that feeling of wanting to be away from everyone. All right? Mary Magdalene is one of those women who went through a lot in her life. Okay? And there's one specific thing we're going to address that's addressed in the Bible here. And here's one of the most amazing things about this story. She is like the first one to get to look at and visually see the risen Jesus Christ. You know that? She gets to look at him and see him after he had died at this worst moment, for her, and the depression that she must have been feeling from losing her she'll call him Rabboni, teacher, person who I respect and love and adore. And if you know the story, she loved and adored Jesus. And we're going to see why when I read the story. But she gets to visually see him, and that moment for her is so major. And he gets to tell her, go tell them. Go tell them you saw me. And what an amazing thing that you ready for this? Mary Magdalene, who had these problems we're about to read, got to be the first evangelist to go preach the risen Savior because she saw him. And she got to run to the disciples and got to share this great news. She shared the gospel for the very first time. It was the gospel after the risen Christ. Now, the gospel message we know was taught in the teachings of Jesus. We know the gospel message is inherent in prophecy in the Old Testament. We know these things, okay? But this is a woman who had absolutely no right or credibility when it comes to us, in our opinion of her, to be the first one to run to the disciples who were the inner circle of Jesus, right? And go tell them, you guys got to go. You guys got to get over there. He's risen. Pretty crazy and exciting and cool. And I know for a fact he wanted us to know she was first. Because even in that society, right, women, they weren't held to the standard of these men. It was a group of women, initially, by the way, that went to the tomb to go take spices and wrap his body. And as they approached the